Hey everybody, I know it's been a few weeks, but welcome back to more Forza multiplayer here in 2024. We've got 3 races to go through here today, or maybe actually like 2.5. The second one was a bit interesting, and we'll see why later. Adopting that sentiment of new year, new me, we're going to be a bit bold. In our very first race back, we're going to try a new car, the MG, for this one. It's going to literally be the first time driving it. As you can see, the car level up there, only level 3, getting a 213 here in practice. But anyways, let's get into this one. Since we didn't qualify, we're going to be starting towards the back. We're going to actually be in P19 here to start. And for those that have watched the channel before, you know I've developed a bit of an affinity for the Lynx, so it'll be interesting to try a completely different car this go round. Alrighty, this is my first time on Forza in weeks. Let's see how this is going to go. Little bumpy and a little choppy, at least here at the beginning. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening? After a little bit of chaos in the first couple turns, we get pushed a bit wide by a Texas state trooper here. Really not that bad at all, but it puts us down to P20 temporarily until we pass a couple cars that have already gone off track. So I want to try to be as clean as I can, but it has been a long time since I've played this game, I feel like, at this point, so I feel very rusty. Rusty or not, I am still going to try to be pretty aggressive in this race while still also being clean. We're going to look to the inside of the Texas Department of Public Safety. Unfortunately for me, this is a rough position to be in as we come up towards Degner Curve, so I have to back off for a moment, but I get a good run before we go into the next turn, and I try to hold a really narrow line here, but we're going to make a little bit of contact. Ooh, easy there. Say the Texas State Trooper definitely wasn't having any of it. Wasn't a safe enough move for the Department of Public Safety, and they'll continue to let me know. Oh my gosh, I'm just getting battered. Alright, it's fine. Oh, we've ended up in 14th. When did that happen? Yeah, there were several cars that went off the track in the S's, and I didn't even notice, and there's going to be another one here as we come out of Spoon. But now we're going to come down this straightaway, and we're definitely going to have an opportunity to make some passes here. We've got some good momentum on some other cars. We are going to go ahead and be pretty aggressive here, potentially making it 3 wide for a moment before we get to the next turn, but I do get a complete pass before we get there. Oh man, getting annihilated from the back. Yeah, that Texas Department of Public Safety is just really not appreciating how unsafe I'm being in this race, so they're going to punish me for it occasionally. Fortunately, we're going to stay up ahead. We'll get another pass on a link that ends up accidentally going into the gravel on the final couple turns of the lap. Man, this car is fast. Like, I mean, look at it taking on these Audis. This thing is quick. Would not have expected this. Yeah, that was my first real look at the power that this car has. I had seen a lot of people using it for a while, but I just hadn't tried it myself, so definitely seeing why it's getting utilized a bit more. Unfortunately, we weren't really able to capitalize on it there. We still end up behind these 2 Audis after the first couple turns, and we'll be here for a minute. My god, I feel so rusty. As we follow these Audis, I was kind of self-projecting a bit of a skill issue onto myself, but we've actually done pretty well so far. I mean, we started in P19, we're all the way up in P9, so I think I was probably being pretty hard on myself there. While this car is certainly powerful and fast, I did feel like it wasn't quite as stable as the Link, but sometimes that was actually a good thing. It was actually a little more agile through certain turns as long as I could handle it. Now, somewhat surprisingly, one of the Audis ahead kind of drives right into the gravel, giving us a free position up into P8, and the weirdness isn't necessarily going to stop there. As we come up into the hairpin, Rapid Pursuit up ahead is just going to go into the grass and hit the wall, and the other Audi's going to go wide as a result. So I think that made it about as easy as possible to get another 3 positions up into P6, while also getting an epic car level 5. At this point, there was definitely a bit of a gap ahead of us, but we are closing it pretty quick. In turn 15, though, we're going to have a bit of an issue. A little bit off track there. We're going to get a penalty. Yep. Oh my gosh, almost a full second for that. Wow. Naughty. Just a bit outside. I think we were maybe 1-2 pixels off track there, but you carry so much speed through that turn that the game really does not like when you go out of bounds on that one. Gosh, I can't believe how fast this thing is. Once again, coming down the main straight, we just close the gap like it's nothing to P5 with the power of this car. Unfortunately, once again, not really quite enough to be able to fully take advantage of it cleanly as we go through the first couple turns. We do get a bit of a run on the exit, though, as we go into the S's. Unfortunately, it still wasn't quite enough in that moment to make an easy pass, but we're going to start to adjust our line a little bit here to try to create an opportunity as we continue to go through. And once we get to about this point, we managed to get on their outside. Now, being on their outside, I really didn't expect to be able to hold this position, but before we get through all the S's, we do end up making the pass.
Ooh, barely sneaking by on that one.
So at this point, we worked our way up to P5, so feeling really good about it. Always love a top 5 finish. A lot of the race left though, so definitely thinking I can make a lot more progress and see what happens after we pit. Now a bit later we really started to close the gap on Woodpecker ahead, but we can see in turn 15 how overly cautious I'm being now after having gotten that penalty. Either way though, as we come into Casino Triangle, we're going to end up getting right up behind Woodpecker, and we're going to actually have a really good run before we come onto the main straight, taking the outside line to see if we can go by. After the previous couple laps, I was definitely confident that I could make this pass on the outside with the unbelievable power of this car down the main straight. In this instance though, Woodpecker is going to still have a little bit of a run looking to my inside going to the first couple turns, but just not quite able to make the pass before we go through. Up into P4 for now, but it's a pretty big gap until we'd be able to reach the podium.
Oh my gosh, I'd have 8 seconds to catch up to them. Dang, I don't think so.
Now we're certainly not going to make it happen with that attitude, are we? I mean, they do have a 2.5 second penalty up there, and there's a lot of race left, so there's a chance. And by the time we actually come into the pits, we are going to have closed that gap quite a bit, down to almost 4 seconds by the time we go in. Now our tires had gotten in pretty rough shape before we were able to come into the pits, dipping into the red there, probably why we were able to catch up so much to the podium. Obviously at this point we're just going to throw on another set of mediums. I definitely didn't trust the softs to last for 3 laps if the mediums didn't last for 4.
3 left.
Coming out of the pits though, we're going to end up having only lost 1 position, as Woodpecker was the only one to stay out at this point after having done 4 laps. And at this point, with some of the quicker drivers ahead, we're going to be here for a little while. It's not going to be until lap 6 that we're going to start to close in on Porridge for the podium. Now at this point, with their 2.5 seconds worth of penalties, we do actually pretty much have P2. Oh gosh, what just happened there? I was about to say we were about to have P3, but I forgot that a car went off right there, so just kidding, we basically have P2 on penalties. Looks like the leader must have had a rough time going through the S's there, and Smokey McSaw is going to take over the lead. Now a total of only 4 seconds ahead of us, so part of me thought there was a chance that I might actually be able to get the win here. Coming into the end of the 6th lap to start the final one, we're going to end up being pretty close behind Porridge, and once again the power of this car on the straight, especially against the Hyundai, we're just going to get right up behind him before the first couple turns. Now at this point the gap to the leader has started to approach 3 seconds. Porridge ahead of us has over 3 seconds of penalties, definitely have a P2, but we do still have to kind of work our way through Porridge if we want to have any chance at that lead. Unfortunately for us, that's going to actually allow Smokey McSaw to start getting a little bit further ahead as we try to work our way around here. Once again, trying some various lines through the S to try to set up a move later, but this time not successful. So unfortunately, we kind of have to settle behind Porridge for a little bit, the lead looking like it's probably not possible at this point. As we come up to Degner Curve though, Porridge is going to have a bit of a moment.
Oh gosh. Ooh, bring it back under control. Okay. Well, that was crazy. I almost lost it right there.
Definitely didn't expect that tip into the gravel, and I was not prepared to have to try to go around them there.
Unfortunately, though, won't be catching up to Smokey McSaw.
Yeah, I'd already kind of mentioned it earlier, and I knew during the race that it just really wasn't going to happen, and sure enough, as we come into the end of the last lap, we're going to end up with just that P2 finish. Smokey McSaw actually managing to keep about that 4-second gap on us. But overall in this race, we ended up going up 17 positions, so one of my better increases in a little while. And looking at those lap times, it looks like Smokey definitely deserved to win with the fastest lap there. Now though, we go into the second race, which was going to be a nighttime race here at VIR. And I'm going to move through this one kind of quickly, because there was quite a bit of weirdness that happened in this one. But anyways, once again we didn't qualify. It puts us in P15 out of 20 to start. And on the start of this one, we actually get a pretty decent launch, already catching up to some cars ahead. But as we come into the first turn on VIR, it's notoriously difficult, especially at night, and we're just going to have a hard time seeing anything. Ooh, what? Can't see anything. Can't see. anything. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I'm blinded by everything. Now through that chaos we got a bunch of positions, and by the time we get towards the end of the second lap we're going to be up in P10, up behind T and Richard, and they're going to end up being quite a reactionary blocker. We're having a bit of difficulty getting by.
It's fine.
Once we get up to roller coaster though, this is going to be where all the weirdness really kicks off.
Okay. What the heck? Was that lag? Like, did I lag spike? I'm trying to decide what the heck is happening, because cars are everywhere. Did everybody DC?
Yeah, I'd never really seen this before. The entire lobby seems to have disconnected except for 3 of us. At this point though, I decided to still stick around towards the end of the race, kind of hanging out behind Richard with all the reactionary blocking. Getting a solid opportunity on the last lap to cleanly pass. I had kind of just been hanging out behind since they had that penalty, and I was using it a bit more as practice than anything at this point. After so many people disconnected, it just didn't really feel like it was truly a race. I mean, I guess by the end we got P1 technically, so that's cool, but anyways, let's move on. There wasn't much to see there. And that's going to take us to Kyalami, which for those of you that have seen previous videos, I definitely have had a good time on this track with the touring cars. For this one, at the end practice, we're going to end up setting a lap time of about 1:54.5, which is good enough for second in the field. Only of 14 players this go. By race time, we will end up in P10 to start the race, as once again we didn't qualify. But this P10 isn't going to last for long, we'll see as we get up to the first turn here. Now, we got a pretty good launch compared to the MG to our left, but there's going to be another MG right behind us, Art the Of, that got an even better launch and just really flies by us here on the start. And they had a terrific race, Art the Of, we'll see towards the end. But now it's time for us to go on a little bit of a ride here on the first turn. Good start to this one. Alright, so we're starting from the back. That's how I wanted it anyway. Let's go. Now we have to pass everybody. Yeah, so let's pretend we didn't start in P10 and that we actually just started all the way in the back. And not too much later in the lap, we're going to have already caught up with the group of cars ahead. We're going to look to the inside of this Audi on the exit of the S's. We definitely get a pretty decent run on them, but unfortunately it's going to put us on the outside for turn 10. But we're going to have a little bit of weirdness here. We have to brake pretty aggressively to the outside, trying to avoid, and we're going to have that Audi end up pausing the game, I think, to try to avoid hitting the MG ahead of us. Now I do end up kind of trying to take advantage of their ghost there, dipping inside of them to try to make sure I get a good run on the exit as we go down through the mine shaft. It's going to put us in P12 for the time being, but once we get up to the crocodiles, we're going to get a couple free positions as these two end up getting a bit tangled up on the exit. So back up where we started, at least we're back in P10. I mean, just kidding. We started in last, remember? We're up 4 positions. Woo! We'll take a moment here though just to point out that in Forza you can obliterate the curb that's on turn 15 or cheetah there. Now this is definitely not the case in ACC. If any of you saw my video before the end of the year, I did make contact with that curb. And boy, let me tell you, I definitely caught some air and it sent me right off the track. Anyways, as we start to approach the back of the Pro Axis, I'm going to note that my name is not Josh, so I'm going to decide to not back off here. Gonna be looking to try to get alongside them on the exit to set up a move maybe for a future turn, but right at that moment it didn't quite happen. Turn 5 though, we're gonna be able to outbrake them and just kind of go right up underneath to get P9. So now finally starting to get a net position gain on the day here at Kyalami. Later on in the lap we're gonna start to close in on P8, and once again going through the S's we're gonna get a pretty good run, and we're gonna look to get alongside as we head up towards turn 10. Gonna be tight though. Ooh, really squeezing me over here. Unfortunately, once again, this is going to put us in a bit of a rough position on the outside for turns 10 and 11, but we're not going to back down on this one. We're going to manage to stay alongside throughout the turn. Ooh, very close. Racing there. Yeah, that actually felt like a really good moment. We are going to end up getting the pass as we go down here towards the crocodiles, but there was really close racing there and no contact was actually made. Unfortunately though, for Aeonian Truths behind us, they're going to get a bit dive-bombed by the Pro Axis and thrown wide, so it's going to actually make them lose a couple positions in that moment. And from this point it'll take a moment, but we will close the gap to Barb Bush ahead of us. We're now on the third lap, so I'm starting to kind of consider what strategy might look like as far as tires.
So I don't know if we can go 5 laps on the mediums in this car. It seems to be a little bit rougher on tires than the Link, at least the way that I drive the Link in comparison, maybe.
Yeah, in a previous video I was able to go 5 laps on the mediums in the Link, but maybe not with this car.
Oop, hello. Gonna be tight through here.
Sorry, I digress. We do end up getting the pass on Barb Bush before we get up to the S's. It's going to put us up into P7 for now, but we're going to close this gap to Spoon pretty quickly, and by the time we get to the Crocodiles, we're going to end up pretty much right on their rear bumper. Well, maybe not that close, but as we come up towards Cheetah, we're definitely going to be able to get closer, because we're going to completely obliterate this curb again, because the cars can take it in this game. And unfortunately, Spoon's going to have a little bit of a moment, and that's going to allow us to take the inside on the final turn as we come to the end of the third lap. That'll put us up in a P6 for now. Meanwhile, we have been at least keeping touch or maybe even closing the gap on the leader ahead, but for now, Spoon's not going to leave us alone going down the straight, so I'm going to end up going defensive as we come up towards that big braking zone on lap 4. Fortunately though, as we come into this turn, we're not really going to get challenged too much, and we're going to definitely be able to secure P6. Once again though, I start to contemplate what the heck I'm going to do for strategy.
I don't know. Well, we'll see how the tires are doing at the end of this lap. There's a chance that I could stay out one more and then get the softs on.
I definitely was wanting to try to recreate the success I'd had in the Link on this track before, doing 5 laps on the mediums and 3 laps on the softs. As we come towards the end of the 4th lap though, it just doesn't look like it's going to happen with this car.
It would be very risky. I think we should go in. We'll just do medium in this car. So I think I can only get away with medium soft in the Link.
Yep, so we end up going ahead and going into the pits, and it looks like the leaders ended up doing so as well. We'll obviously go ahead and put on another set of mediums without refueling the car to try to get back out here as quick as possible. Unfortunately, with pitting at this time during the race, we're bound to lose a few positions, and we are going to on the exit here. Back down into P9 for now, but we do see that there were a few people that stayed out, so we are going to have some of those up there probably need to pit before the end of the race. And at this point, we have about 4 seconds before we'd be able to reach P8, but by the end of this lap, we're going to close that gap entirely.
You need to go into the pits, bud. Yeah. Those tires were dying on you.
So here it is, as we round out the 5th lap, there are going to be a few that go into the pits, and once again, we're going to end up getting up into P6.
Okay, so everybody pitted. So we're kind of back where we were, but I don't have enough time to catch up to P1. I think we have a real shot at a podium, though.
Yeah, while I thought we were probably the fastest in this race, we only have 3 laps left, and the drivers up front I think were quick enough to stay away from us. We do manage to close the gap a bit by the time we get to lap 7, and P4 ahead of us is going to have a big moment on turn 5, which is really going to kill their momentum as we start to go towards sunset. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to fully take advantage of it before we get to sunset, so we have to kind of settle behind as we go through this long turn. They're going to go really wide on the exit though, and it's going to mess them up before we get into turn 7. So we will be able to get up into P5 here as we barely work our way on the inside. They aren't going to go away though, they're going to stay with us for a little while as they were one of the quicker drivers overall, just having made a mistake back there. We will hold on to the position though, and by the time we get up to Cheetah, we're going to end up right behind P4. We're going to make a little bit of a mistake here though as I lock up the brakes going into the final turn.
Oh gosh. They were just going to sneak up underneath there. Well, we can fight for P4.
Yeah, P6 behind definitely wanted to try to take advantage of that small mistake I made there, kind of pushing their way through, but we end up staying by them, and I go defensive before this big braking zone once again. And in going defensive, I actually didn't necessarily mean for this to happen, but we actually got up underneath P4, taking the position here, but it's going to be a little bit tight through the next couple turns, a tiny bit of contact made there. Once we come up around turn 5 though, we're definitely going to secure the position for now, being able to get a bit of a gap behind us. At this point though, after all that battling, we're just too far behind the podium to really be able to make up 4 seconds in the last lap, especially when I make a mistake like this.
Uh-oh. That's going to open the door. That was a big mistake.
And with such a mistake, I was right. We're going to end up having left that door open. P5 behind us is going to get alongside as we go down through the mine shaft. I mean, at this point, they do have penalties. I know that I'm probably at least going to get P4 on those. But things are going to continue to look a bit rough for me as we go into the end of this final lap. Mork is going to end up getting my inside before we get up to Cheetah, and there's just really no hope of staying there as we go through here. So while we are going to wrap this race up in P4, probably based on those penalties, it certainly wasn't as glorious of a finish as I was hoping for.
Obviously, it's more glorious to actually win the race, but we have P4.
Now, while we did have a pretty good position gain on the day, essentially going from 14th to 4th, we're going to see, if you remember Art the Of at the beginning, I said had a really good race, and they actually got all the way up 11 positions to take first. So really, really good race by them, but I mean, in conclusion here, I really like this car. It may end up being my new favorite for the touring car series for now. It might actually see a nerf, I'm not sure. It seems really strong on the straights. For now though, for those of you that are curious, my rating's currently sitting around a 49-46, and please take this with a grain of salt. I don't know if it really means that much. It is gonna go down soon, I promise. Either way, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be putting out more soon. I actually have some B-class races I'm thinking of making a video about. But until then, we'll see you next time.